on. Okay, let's get started then. Thank you everyone for joining us. It looks like we have a good number with us tonight. My name is Leah Holt. I am with Go Travel here based in Edson, Alberta, and I have been a travel agent for 5 years. I have really been enjoying doing these travel talks, couch travel, from the comfort, I should say, of our own homes, bringing on special guests from suppliers that we deal with as travel agents, and they are always here to help us out and tell us more about what they specialize in. And tonight we are bringing in Philip Solomon. He is with Tourcan Vacations based in Toronto. We do have a rep here in Alberta, but Philip's going to help us out tonight from Toronto. Thanks for staying up so late to join us tonight, Philip. It's 9 o'clock your time, and we appreciate
Not a problem.
that. So, yeah, let's get started. Tonight we're talking all about safaris, and he is going to tell us what you've always wanted to know about a safari. We're going to look at things that you should expect, accommodations, and what Tourcan can offer us if we book a safari with them. So take it away, Philip. I know you have a great presentation planned for us. So,
well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and not a problem. I actually enjoyed doing the presentations this late in the evening. The only sad part about it is that I cannot have a drink, because I cannot do that and present at the same time. So you can all sit back, relax, and have a drink, and hopefully enjoy this presentation tonight, all about safaris. As you heard, my name is Philip Solomon. I am with Tourcan Vacations. We are a tour company based in Toronto. We've been around for 33 years, and we work with agents and travel professionals such as Lee, and put together itineraries to the world's exotic destinations. That's where we specialize in: Africa, Asia, South Central America, the South Pacific, and so on. But tonight, I'm going to be talking to you all about safaris. And I'm kind of going to go into the very basics from what is a safari, the questions that you may have, such as when you should go on a safari, and what it is that you need to know prior to departure before you actually arrive in the destination. I have many questions that I always ask about what actually happens on a safari. Why do I have to travel every other day? And what's this I hear about tented accommodation? What does that mean? And I'm going to give you some examples of that during the presentation. Many of the itineraries that are out there that you will see, they offer a driving safari or a flying safari, and I'm going to touch on those. And then I'm going to visit a couple of national parks in Kenya and Tanzania to give you an example of a 12 to 14-day itinerary that you can sample and experience should you wish to go to Kenya and Tanzania. And I'll conclude with, well, if I didn't want to just go on safari, I wanted to do something more, some more sightseeing, what are the other options? And then I'll hand it back to Lee, and we will have some questions and answers. So just starting off with some very basics about the term safari itself. It's interesting that when you go and read about the word safari, and you look up these various definitions, they all have something in common. And that one thing is to observe animals, to go on an expedition to observe animals, to go on a journey to view animals. Two other interesting points come out in these definitions as well. The one is to hunt animals, but we also know that that was way back in the 1800s, 1900s. And the third thing is that they all make reference to East Africa as the place to go on safari. So we know it's an expedition to go and view animals in East Africa, and that's why for tonight, Lee and I have selected Kenya and Tanzania. So from this definition, we know that from the mid-1800s to about the mid-1900s, the term safari really applied to those folks who would go out to hunt animals versus what we really experience today after the mid-1900s, going to view animals in their natural habitat, as you will see on the right-hand side of your screen. interestingly enough, the word safari was actually founded by an English explorer by the name of Sir Richard Burton, and he has no connection to that actor who married Elizabeth Taylor numerous times. He goes back to the late 1800s and used to explore many nations. He was actually a very smart man, spoke about 11 languages. And he visited Africa. He met up with the Africans, learned a bit of Swahili and an Arabic word which means safaria, which means a journey or an expedition. So safaria from Africa, that is where the term a voyage or expedition and the word safari actually comes from. That's just some general information for you. So we know that this evening we're going to be concentrating on two areas, and that would be Kenya and Tanzania, as you can see indicated by the arrow on the east coast of Africa. And we're really going to hone in on this portion. You can actually see the parts that are in green are the national parks that we are going to touch on. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples in a later while. So let's start off with some general questions that I'm always asked when people are planning a safari as to what you need to know prior to safari, because I'm assuming you're attending this because this is what you want to do. One of the questions obviously is, how do we get down to East Africa? And I'm only going to give you one example of this, KLM. And the reason I often use KLM as the example is that they fly out of all the major cities in Canada, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, and Montreal, which really makes it very easy. And it is a quick hop across to Europe. It's about 7 hours across the pond, 7-8 hours, and then about 8.5 hours down into East Africa. But the other important thing is that they fly not only into Kenya, but also into Tanzania. So you can start your safari in Kenya and end it in Tanzania, and then fly out on the same airline, or vice versa. So that's one example. Of course, there's plenty of other airlines that fly in: British Airways, Air France, Lufthansa. They all go into East Africa. In terms of visa requirements getting into East Africa, both Kenya and Tanzania, they do require a visa. Currently $51 and $50 for Tanzania. The great thing now is that you can get both these visas online. Before you have to send your passports off to the embassy, we no longer have to do that, so that's a great thing. You do need to have 2 pages blank side by side. This is for Kenya. And like all travel, your passport must be valid for at least 6 months after your return. Of course, the other question that people always ask me is, when is the best time to go? So Kenya and Tanzania really are year-round destinations. What you really need to look out for is the rainy season. And that rainy season happens in both countries around April, May, and into early June. And those are called the long rain. And then you have a shorter rainy period, November into early December. We find that the most popular times for our clients to travel is that period between January and March. It is the warmest time to travel. And then again, July and August. July and August being the peak season of travel. It's the drier, cooler time. It is the peak season. And August into September is also the time when that massive migration takes place, when the wildebeest and the zebra are going to be crossing over the Mara River, and I will be touching on that in a little while. So that gives you some idea. And when you look at that example that I've given you, you can actually see on the left-hand side of the screen some of the game parks that I've listed there, and to the right, whether the conditions are excellent, good, or fair. And if you really look at that throughout, conditions for travel is always excellent, good, or fair, and that fair is during the rainy season. In terms of your health requirements, like any travel to exotic destinations, it's very important that you do contact your health clinic or your doctor to determine if any inoculations are needed. You need to do that 6 to 8 weeks prior to departure. But one thing that you will be told is that you will need anti-malaria protection for when you go into Kenya and Tanzania. So please consult your doctor on that. So when we talk about the safari experience, what are we really talking about? One of the questions I'm really often asked is, why do we travel every other day? So when you go on safari, it is not going to one lodge and spending a week there and doing a safari experience. You do move every second or third day, and there's some reasons for that, and I'll be touching on that as I move through the presentation. Once you get to your destination, early morning and afternoon game drives, that's really the order of the day. That's what happens on safari. You'll get to your lodge, you'll have an afternoon game drive, next day you'll have an early morning game drive, and so on. Now, when you're on a driving safari, sometimes when you move from the one lodge to the other, the game drive is included en route. Some of the itineraries you're going to see out there are driving safaris. Some are driving with a flying option, so you can do a flight, 1 or 2 flights, and others are purely flying in safari. Now, the vehicles that we use and we send our clients on safari, you can see that on the right-hand side of your screen. They are 4x4 vehicles. They have pop-up roofs. Everybody gets a window seat. We accommodate 6 people per vehicle. So if there are more of a family of 10 or 12 traveling, obviously we would use 2 vehicles, 6 per person in a vehicle, and you would do the safari viewing as you see in the vehicle here with the pop-up roof. You will notice here that I had mentioned no aircon. Many of the vehicles don't have air conditioning. It's really tough driving in the sandy and dusty conditions that it really creates a problem and they don't often work effectively. The person that will be driving your vehicle is an English-speaking driver guide. This is a qualified ranger that is familiar with the terrain and the animals, and he or she will serve as your driver guide for the duration of whatever safari it is you select. If you're doing a fly-in safari, you make use of the game rangers of that particular lodge where you fly in. Once you leave the city and you go into the bush and you start your safari, it is always done on a full board basis. This means breakfast, lunch, and dinner always included. So one of the things I said to you was the reason we travel every other day, one of the reasons is because you will experience different animal sightings in different parts of the countries. So for example, in the northern part of Kenya, you will get to see a variety of animals that you may not see down in the south, in the open plains of the Masai Mara. Here's an example for you. The Grevy's zebra, which you will see up in the north, in Samburu area, versus the zebra that you will see down in the south. So you can really see the distinction there. And I guess the question still is there, is a zebra black with white stripes or white with black stripes? Another reason why you travel every other day is the terrain that changes. And you will get to see that during the course of the presentation. Here you have the wide open plains of the Masai Mara and the Serengeti. But in parts of Kenya in the north, it is more arid, dry, and bushy. So that's another reason why we travel from to every other day. And then, of course, you get different types of accommodation when you are traveling. So when you are out there and you read all these different types of itineraries that you will get to see, you will see some of them say accommodation at a lodge or tented lodge accommodation. So let's talk first about tented accommodation, because sometimes people kind of freak out and say, hey, I don't want to go and stay in this small little tent in the middle of the bush with all these wild animals running around, and that's really what we're not talking about. When we talk about tented accommodations, ladies and gentlemen, think about a 4 or 5-star hotel room. Remove the walls, remove the roof, and put a canvas over it. And that is what we talk about luxury tented accommodation. That today they also refer to it as glamping. So here's a good example for you. In the Serengeti, one of the lodges that we use, the migration camp, this one is built up off the ground. Most of them are. It is canvas only, as you can see. Beautiful accommodations. This is a luxury property. And all of them do come with en-suite facilities. Some of the tented lodges, as you can see by this example, not only have a canvas over it, but also has a thatched roof. This is Sweetwater's tented camp in Kenya. Accommodations, this is they don't really rank them by stars, but I'll probably give this a 4-star rating. And they all come, as I say, with beautiful en-suite facilities. So those are tented lodges. And then we have lodges which are the solid structures, non-canvas. For example, the Four Seasons Hotel and Lodge in the Serengeti would be your luxury 5-star type property where you can stay. Or the Serena Lodge. Now, throughout Kenya and Tanzania, there is this group that we use, the Serena Lodges. They offer lovely 4-star style accommodations, very, very comfortable, as you can see here. And the other one that I gave you, obviously, was the 5-star option. We spoke about getting around and a driving safari. So here again is an example for you of the type of vehicle that we would use. So let's talk about a driving safari. And you will see many of these being promoted and advertised. And we also spoke about the fact that you're going to travel every second or third day. So when you are out on a driving safari, you could be driving from one destination or one lodge to the next. And that driving time could be anything from 3 to 5.5 to 6 hours. Occasionally, the roads can be bumpy. I've done it many times. It's part of the excitement of being on safari. And what I really enjoyed about the driving aspect of it is that you are driving through the countryside of these different countries. You're getting to see the landscape. You're also getting to see the locals, and particularly when you stop along the way. It is the cheaper option of the two versus flying. And again, when you're driving from one lodge to the next, you will often find that a game drive is included making your way to the lodge. The other option you will see is that some itineraries are going to say, well, this is a driving safari and the last lodge back to the city will be on a flight, or you can do everything by flight. So a couple of options here. In Kenya, Tanzania, there are scheduled flights that you can take. So for example, Air Kenya would fly from Nairobi to the Masai Mara, from Nairobi to Amboseli. What it does, it cuts down on travel time, and it does give you more opportunity time at the lodge itself. You can chill out at the pool. It is extremely scenic, particularly when you are flying lower and you can see the animals from above. And it is probably the more expensive of the two options. There are some companies that own their own lodges and aircraft. So what they do is they offer what is called a fly-in safari. So you will find each and every lodge over the 10 days or 12 days that you are on safari, staying at the properties of this particular group. One example is Elawana. You can see it down, you can always look it up on the web and look at their properties. I'll give you some examples. And they call it a sky safari. So they offer a sky safari to Kenya or Tanzania, or a combination of both. So this is completely flying in, and then you make use of the lodge vehicles to go on safari with your game ranger. This is the style of the aircraft that they use. It is a 9-seater Cessna, beautiful and lovely to get around. So here's an interesting thing that some people kind of react to when they see that the luggage when you go on safari is 15, sometimes 20 kilos maximum, but 15 kilograms. 2 reasons. One, remember those light aircraft that I've just shown you? They have a restriction as to the weight of the luggage and also the type of luggage. So all baggage must be soft-sided bags, not only for the aircraft, but also think of those vehicles that we are using. So we have to pack that luggage into the back of the vehicles, so it must always be soft-sided and 15 kilos, and it can be done. So there's some general background for you about safaris, general information, what you need to know prior to travel. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to give you an example of a 10 or 12-day journey in Kenya and Tanzania, visiting a number of parks. Starting off in the city of Nairobi, going down to Amboseli. We're going to look at visiting Samburu, Lake Nakuru, the Serengeti and the Masai Mara, and the Ngorongoro crater. So why have I selected these? I've done so because these are the national parks that you will most commonly see in itineraries that we offer and many others. And these are the ones that you will probably read about more than others. Of course, the safari can be done in the reverse. You can actually fly into Kilimanjaro Airport here, Arusha, and do it in the reverse and end up in Nairobi. So let's start off in Nairobi, and always a question I'm asked, well, you know, should I really spend time there or should I just get out? So my suggestion is you need to spend a day, 2 nights in Nairobi, because there really are a number of things that can be visited and seen. Here are a couple of examples for you, and I would really suggest you include this in the itinerary. The one is the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. It's an orphans project of rescue and rehabilitation. So these are young baby elephants that have been rescued. They've been rescued because they've been saved from poachers. They've been saved from drought situations. And I was recently reading about the project, and they just brought in a new youngster a couple of months ago where the mother had died, and they actually discovered she had heart issues, and she was still feeding the youngster. So they had to take her away and bring her to this project where they rehabilitate them and try and get them back into certain areas in Kenya. So this project, ladies and gentlemen, it is not one where one goes to ride an elephant, not at all. This is looking at how they work at rehabilitating these incredible animals and helping them through a very, very traumatic time in their lives. You can adopt one of these little elephants. You'll see how the handlers work with them. And I would certainly encourage you to include that in the stop in Nairobi. One of the other places to visit is the Karen Blixen Museum. So some of you may be familiar with the movie Out of Africa. Karen Blixen, also known as Isak Dinesen, she was a Danish author. She married a gentleman by the name of, I forget his name, but it doesn't matter. And she and her husband actually settled here in 1931 on this beautiful, huge plantation in Kenya. The husband passed away, and she fell in love with a gentleman by the name of Dennis Finch Hatton, who he later died, and then she returned to Denmark. So it's really a very intricate story, a big love story that was involved. If you haven't seen the movie, I suggest you go and look it up, Out of Africa, and you'll learn a little bit about the history of the plantation and also the lives of this Danish writer. And the last place that I would suggest you get to visit is a place called Giraffe Center. So Giraffe Center was started way back in 1979 by Leslie Melville and his wife. And why did they start this? They discovered that a certain species of giraffe, known as the Rothschild giraffe, their numbers were dwindling. They were down to about 130. And they decided to create this breeding center where they could start increasing the numbers of this dying breed and then put them back into certain parks within Kenya itself. So This is a breeding center. You can go and visit, and you do have a hands-on experience with the giraffe itself. But over and above being a breeding center, it also serves as an educational center, a nature educational center, and they bring thousands of Kenyan school children here to learn about the animals and, of course, the nature, flora, and fauna. On the property is a place called Giraffe Manor. This is a hotel located on the property, usually sold out, has to be booked far in advance because people want to stay here to get that giraffe experience. And this would be one of your 5-star properties, beautiful Giraffe Manor. So something to consider, and have this wonderful experience with the giraffes when you're having your breakfast in the morning. Here's another example of a hotel in Nairobi. It's called the Boma Hotel, which is probably a 4-star property. It's pretty new. They have all the big names are there in Nairobi. I'm just going to give you 1 or 2 examples as we work through the itinerary. The beautiful Boma Hotel. A Boma is a reed enclosure, and they try to kind of construct the hotel in that reed enclosure style, well known in Africa. So now we're going to set off, and from Nairobi we'll either fly or drive. This is no specific itinerary. It's really just an idea to give you the different national parks. Amboseli. So what you're seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, in the background is Mount Kilimanjaro, which is situated in Tanzania. Amboseli National Park is located in Kenya. The views are spectacular, and flying into Amboseli is beautiful as you see that majestic mountain get closer and closer. What's significant about Amboseli is that it is known for its large herds of elephants. It's home of the African elephant, that's what it's called. But over and above that, morning and afternoon game drive, you will get to see a variety of animals. Perhaps not in the large herds that you may see in other areas, but certainly you will get to see different species of animals. They have identified about 600 bird species in this area. And because of the melting snow, we do have marshy conditions. And here you can see some of the elephants enjoying the marsh itself. So here's a very good example for you, because you're probably looking at that and saying, well, that's a different looking vehicle. And the reason it's a different vehicle, if you are flying into this particular area and you're staying at a lodge called Tortillas Camp, that would be the lodge vehicle that is used. So a variety of other animals, rhino, cheetah, leopard, zebra. It's a beautiful area, and particularly when the water and the rains have been, it is particularly lush. 2 properties I'll mention to you there. Tortillas Camp. Now, you remember I spoke about Elawana and the flying safari? This would be one of the properties that they would use. It is a luxury tented lodge with a spectacular view of Mount Kilimanjaro. Or the Amboseli Serena Lodge. This is a lovely 4-star property, and again, offering great accommodation. To the north, Samburu Reserve. That's about a 5.5-hour drive from Nairobi, or just over an hour flight. This is the entrance to Samburu, and what you see painted against the wall there actually is a style of giraffe that you will find in this area. So have a look at the terrain. Already it is different to Amboseli. It is dry, semi-arid, and more bushier than you would find in some other areas. And this is where you're going to see certain animal types you won't see somewhere else. For example, the beautiful oryx, known for their beautiful horns. The Garanoop, it's that giraffe-necked antelope, and they stand on their hind legs because they forage and eat all the lovely green leaves and bits that are at the top. The other animals, of course, are down on the ground foraging there. There's the Grevy's zebra we spoke about. And look behind them, you can see what is called the reticulated giraffe. Very different to the Rothschild giraffe that you saw in Nairobi, and probably slightly different to the Maasai giraffe that you're going to see down in the Masai Mara. So again, typically morning and afternoon game drive, and usually people spend about 2 nights at each of these lodges. And again, you will get to see a variety of animals per the example. Accommodation, I've got one example for you. This is a luxury tented lodge. It's called Elephant Bedroom Camp. It is a luxury tented accommodation. Has its own little plunge pool, spectacular views, comfortable accommodation. From Samburu, we're going to go, excuse me, southwest. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Southwest to one of the lakes. So there's Lake Naivasha and there's Lake Nakuru. I've included Lake Nakuru. Driving time also about 5.5 hours to get down to Lake Nakuru from Samburu. En route, we'll stop and look at the beautiful Thompson's Falls and spend a night or two, because this is really taking us en route to the Masai Mara. So usually one night, some people do two. So Lake Nakuru, about 5,500 feet above sea level, 188 square kilometers, and home to flamingos. So this is a good spot to get to see those beautiful birds. There are various types. There's the greater flamingo and the lesser flamingo, and you identify them by their beaks, which one is pinker and one is more red, as you can see over here. And typically, again, you will do a game drive in the afternoon. This is also great for people who are bird lovers because of the lake area. You'll get to see quite a variety of birds. The great white pelican would be one, the blue-eared starling, and a variety of others. Now, the lake also is home to a variety of other animals, such as rhino, zebra, giraffe, buffalo, and here's the Rothschild giraffe. So this is one of the places that has been relocated from that breeding program. And of course, the lion and other animals. And again, you will have your game viewing experience. Accommodation, again, one example for you, Mbweha Camp. I use this as an example. This is a solid structure. It is a lovely luxury property. And it really gives you a good sense that this is a great lodge. It really has that lovely African feel about it. From Lake Nakuru, if you're driving, it's about 5.5 hours down to the Masai Mara. So let me point out that the Serengeti, which is in Tanzania, overflows into Kenya, where it is called the Masai Mara. So people who only go to Kenya on safari will spend time in the Masai Mara. People who do both Kenya and Tanzania will do 2 nights in one spot, Masai Mara, and maybe 2 nights in the Serengeti. If you're only doing the Masai Mara, I would really say do a 3-nighter. It is tremendous. So I'm combining the two in one explanation because really they are very much the same. So the Masai Mara and the Serengeti, look at that terrain, completely different, wide open plains. You can, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see in terms of the mammal population, the Mara has 95 species versus 100, bird species 400 versus 500 in the Serengeti. But if you look at the size of the park, the Masai Mara is 1,500 square kilometers versus 14.5 of the Serengeti. So the Serengeti, those beautiful wide open plains, and of course, this is where you're going to find larger herds of plains game. This is also the region where that great migration, well, the migration takes place throughout the year, but where that happens, August, late August into September, when the animals cross over the Mara River over here. You've probably seen it on the BBC or some animal program when those massive amounts, those hundreds of thousands of wildebeest and zebra cross over the river. Now, the migration It's not something that just happens once and that's it. This is a continuous process that happens for an entire year. So if you follow the arrow, you can see the months where the animals will be in the Serengeti: March, April, May, July, crossing over into Kenya, and then the process continues. And this takes 1 year to complete. During this time, about 1.5 to 2 million wildebeest are involved, 200,000 zebra, gazelles, and during the process, 250,000 wildebeest will die, 30,000 zebra will die, and January to March, 8,000 wildebeest are born each day. So this is a continuous process that happens every year. And then they get to the river. And all it takes is for one wildebeest to decide, now's the time to cross. Because remember, waiting in that river for an entire year are all those crocodiles, knowing that there's a good feed coming their way. This, as I say, happens August, September. It is a peak time to go, and there's no guarantee of the date of when it will happen. But we do know that when it does, one leaps into the water and everyone else takes off. All the wildebeest, the zebra go off, the crocodiles are there, and it is quite a sensational and frightening experience. So when you find larger herds of plains game and you see zebra and buffalo and wildebeest, you're always going to find cats. So there are lots of cats in the Masai Mara and the Serengeti. Cheetah, leopard, lion. They are plentiful. I've been there numerous times and I've always seen cats when I've traveled there. And it's highly likely you may even get to see a kill. And that again, of course, is not something that is guaranteed. But again, morning and afternoon game drives and a variety of animals to be seen, whether it is lion, leopard, cheetah, or the topi, the hyena, jackal, the ever energetic hippo, crocodile, and of course, a huge variety of bird species. Your game rangers are qualified to point them out during the morning and afternoon game drive. And of course, there's nothing to beat an African sunset, particularly here in the Masai Mara and the Serengeti, because of those wide open plains and the clear air. It is quite stunning. Accommodation, just 1 or 2 examples for you. Here we have Olanala Lodge, which is in the Masai Mara. This is a solid structure providing luxury 5-star accommodations. And Tipelakwani Mara Camp. So this is the sister of Elephant Bedroom Camp in Samburu, and again providing luxury tented accommodation. Now in the Masai Mara and the Serengeti, there are some other optional activities that you can do. So if you are traveling and you have a special event, it's an engagement or getting married or anniversary, we can arrange a special little outing for you, a sundowner just before sunset. We can arrange an early morning breakfast for you and watch the sunrise. What's very popular as an optional activity is a balloon safari. So a balloon safari normally sets out very early in the morning and takes the place of that morning's game drive. And I just want to do a shout out to Tour Convocations photographer James Cowie, who's allowed me to make use of many of his visuals for this presentation, including the balloon safari. So you would set out early in the morning, weather depending, wind depending, and board your balloon, and then you go on a 45-minute to an hour's worth of game viewing from above. This is quite a spectacular event, a unique experience, and you end the safari with a lovely champagne breakfast. Nothing to beat that. Another outing would be to a visit to one of the local Maasai villages to learn a little bit about the history and the culture of these incredibly interesting nomadic people, and that can also be included in an itinerary. So going off to our last game viewing area, we're going to travel from the Serengeti to the Ngorongoro crater. So the Ngorongoro crater was a volcano that didn't explode, it imploded, and you can actually see the walls from that implosion that was created by that. So some interesting facts about the crater itself. This happened about 500,000 years ago, 2.5 million years ago. It is home to about 30,000 animals, so smaller herds of animals that are actually living within the crater itself. There are different habitats within the crater. There's a marshy area, there's a dry area, there's a little forest area. It's about 18 kilometers wide and was declared a World Heritage Site in 1979. So what happens here is you will spend the night at your accommodation, and then we do a day trip or sometimes a half-day trip into the crater itself, and then you will come out in the afternoon and back to your lodge. So your game ranger will take you out in your vehicle, and you will get to see a variety of animals here, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit of everything, some beautiful bird species to be seen, zebra, wildebeest, you may get to see some more flamingos. We even get to see some ostriches. So it really is a unique experience, and the accommodations on the rim of the crater are also a lot of fun. Here's another example for you of a Elawana property. So if you're doing a flying safari, this is where you would stay. This is the Manor. It's located about 40 minutes from the crater itself, 45 minutes, and a very more traditional style of accommodation. It is a luxury 5-star property, beautifully done. And I did have to include this one. It's the Ngorongoro Crater Lodge. You can actually see it's right on the rim of the crater. And the reason I've included this is that they've really built it in the style of those African huts. But once you get inside, it is really unique, and maybe some people will think a little bit over the top, but really beautiful and interesting accommodation. And I've already told you about the Serena Lodge, which offers comfortable 4-star accommodation on the crater lodge, on the crater's edge. From Ngorongoro crater, we will go to the town of Arusha, where the safari will end. The airport, the international airport, is actually called Mount Kilimanjaro, is Kilimanjaro Airport, which is about 40 minutes away. And if you start or end in your safari in Arusha, you can spend some time there and spend a night if you like. Accommodation would be the Mount Meru Hotel, would be one example, which is a 4-star property. Or the beautiful Arusha Coffee Lodge, again, one of the Elawana properties. And people love staying here because it is a functioning coffee lodge. And we can include a tour of the coffee plantation during your stay there. And of course, now the safari has come to an end, and the question is this the end? Well, here's the interesting thing, ladies and gentlemen, that about 70%, 71% of people who travel with us and go to Kenya and Tanzania usually extend their journey by 3 to 5 nights and visit the island of Zanzibar. It really is from Kilimanjaro Airport to Zanzibar, just about an hour's flight, hour or 10 minutes. And really, this is merely to go and relax and chill out and spend some time at one of the beautiful resorts. Now, on the island itself, the city of Stone Town is very interesting to visit. It has a very interesting Arabic history. And this is also where Freddie Mercury was born, on the island of Zanzibar. And being a spice island, you can also do a spice tour. But really, most people go to the island just to chill out for a couple of days after the safari. Kalindi, of course, is part of the Elawana group. And I'm just showing you the property. They all offer beautiful beaches, water activities that you can participate in. This is a lovely property. And then your safari would end and you would fly from Zanzibar to Dar es Salaam, 20-minute flight, and get onto KLM and fly out. And that would conclude your East African safari. One of the questions I've often asked is, well, what if I don't want to spend 2 weeks on safari? What if I don't want to see animals for 2 weeks, but I also want to include some sightseeing? I want to see other things as well. Well, the answer to that would be, then you need to make a visit to South Africa, because that offers an excellent combination of sightseeing and safari. But unfortunately, my time is up. So we're going to save South Africa for another time. So I thank you, and almost a wrap. One thing I want to bring to your attention. We are often asked as a company, since you operate in these third world or sometimes developing countries, how do the people that you work with, what do they do to help local communities, the environment, and so on? So again, use Elawana as an example. They have introduced state-of-the-art power systems to help, reduce those emissions and fuel use. They have introduced recycling systems in all their camps, very strict. Up to 75% of their staff come from the local community, and very importantly, they also train the local community in farming, in growing food, so that they can purchase the food and then use it at the lodges. As far as tour convocations is concerned, we also have a give back program. It is called Enriching Lives. So in all, no, that's not really, not all, in many of the destinations that we operate, we have our own projects. An orphanage in Kenya, a school in Tanzania that any client can visit. There's a village in Peru, an art school in India. And what we do is we take $10 from every sale that we get, we put it into an account, and then we purchase whatever these places may need. If you would like to visit any of these places, we can incorporate that in the itinerary. We don't ask for monetary assistance, but if you want to take school books, pens, paper, and so on, we will tell you what the requirements are. That is our way of giving back to these communities. So there you have it. Safaris, and I hope that if you haven't traveled to Africa, that I've whet your appetite, and they certainly will be awaiting your arrival. Thank you so much. Vanessa.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. I took out my headphones, so I wasn't sure if you'd be able to hear me or not, but thank you so much. That gets a big wow. That was amazing, Philip. Yes, and thanks so much for sharing all that gorgeous photos, and also the accommodation makes me want to go right now.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them down in the chat box below, and I will gladly ask Philip for you while he is here with us. Otherwise, if you don't have any questions and you think of something later, feel free to send me an email, or you can also message me, text me, yeah, whichever way. Give me a shout and I'll be happy to answer them. And if I can't, I'll be reaching out to Philip for backup.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, all right. I guess for questions so far, we are just getting, Guylaine says, thank you, Philip. Nice presentation. And accommodations are mostly luxury 5 stars, are they? Or can you get, what you showed us tonight, was it a range of 4 or 5 star?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Good question. So it was a range. So what you saw there were a combination of 5-star and 4-star accommodations. So, for example, in Nairobi, I gave you the difference between the Manor, which is a 5-star, and the Boma, which is a 4-star. The Serena lodges that I showed you would be a very good example of a 4-star quality property.
Okay, good to know. Also, Nicole's wondering, how are you kept safe from the animals when you're sleeping in the tents? Are they gated, or are there people on watch?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So you are quite removed from the animals and the lodges. They are protected and there are guards on duty. So safety is #1 priority. And in some instances, they do have fencing around as well. So absolutely, good question. But you are very much protected and there are people on duty all the time.
Right. Okay, and then Sheldon is wondering, when people go over there and do a safari, do you have any clients that hike or climb Mount Kilimanjaro as well?
Yes, yes, we do. So we do have clients, we do a lot of that. So there are a number of options. You're talking about Mount Kilimanjaro, that's the popular one. There are different routings that you can take, the Maranga route, the Machami route. One is using tents along the way. The other is structures that are already up on the mountain that you share with other people. So yes, we do offer that. In fact, when we offer the climb up Kilimanjaro, I think it's usually about 5 or 6 nights. We always suggest including 1 extra night halfway up the mountain for acclimatization purposes. We often suggest that you come in at least 2 days prior to the climb so that you can acclimatize for that. We usually do the climb first and then we go on safari.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Jan is wondering when you think travel will start again. Do you have, what is your best guess?
Who was that asked the question?
It is Jan.
Jan, I wish I had a crystal ball to answer that question. It is the most difficult one to answer at the moment. And the reason for that is that things are constantly changing. So there is this possibility that travel is going to start locally first. When that will be, they're kind of saying it could be July, August, and long-haul travel will start after that time. But I can't put a month to it, but I certainly hope it will be sooner than later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're all hoping. Mm-hmm. And I'm raring to go as soon as the jets and the planes are in the air again. But okay, well, I think that is it for questions. And before I forget, I also wanted to say a big hello from Chris. We had him on with Rail Bookers on Tuesday, and I can't forget to say hello to you from him. Did you hear that, Philip?
Oh, was that for me?
That's for you, yes. That's
sorry,
for you.
You had, oh, hello, well, hello, Chris.
Yeah, Chris David from Rail Bookers and Amtrak Vacations. He said to say a big hello to you.
Thank you very much, and same back.
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost you there for a moment.
Are you also from South Africa? Is that what your accent is?
It is, yes. I grew up on the African continent. I've been in Canada for over a quarter century.
Wow, okay. Very good. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, rest of your evening, and a great weekend ahead. And we look forward to seeing you next week. I will be sending out an email shortly, probably Saturday, Sunday. So keep your eyes open for that with what's coming next week. Have a great night. Take care.
Thank you very much. Philip. Thank you all very much. Have a good week. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
They put that on you again. Put your camera on.